Welcome in, everyone. And how are we doing today? I hope we are all doing well. Tonight, I think, I just want to talk about a few things in entertainment. Because, the whole thing with Jim Carrey has been going pretty viral, and I don't know if a whole lot of people even paid attention. But he accepted some award in France, and a lot of people were skeptical of whether it was him or not. I'm pretty sure it was him, but I don't think, mentally he's the Jim Carrey we used to know. He's always been one to really hate award shows. He's always been one to really... Oh, no problem. Interrupt away. And thank you very much. I had fun. This actually took a lot more in editing than you might think. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and counting my little VTuber, that's 6 different layers to it. To get the sparkly signs, get the clouds in the sky. And the whole shimmer on the lake or the river or canal or whatever it is supposed to be like the sun coming through. That's why it has such hard lines. It just... I had fun with it. I with what, just really liking the 8-bit music that Ghost had. I mean, I know it was a game that he was playing. I really liked it. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm going to... Yeah, 2-hour ramen. I think that's supposed to be 24-hour, but it's... I'm hoping once I get my own drawing tablet and stuff to actually start using my own drawings for the screens, just for fun. Hello, Green Jeans. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if you guys actually know what was going on with Jim Carrey and how people were saying, oh, he's been replaced. It's a clone. It's this, it's that. It's like, no, I think it's Jim Carrey. But, and yes, hello, everyone. Hello, Infinite. I'm sorry. I probably should have said hello to you. And hello, EXO. Hello, everyone in the chat who's ever even lurking or whatnot. I'm not paying attention to that right now. But like I said, I don't know how many people even paid attention. Yeah, he just got older, and I mean, he had some work done. But I have been saying since Man in the Moon, since he played that one comedian, he has never been the same. Like the Jim Carrey I grew up with that made me laugh, that I really enjoyed. You saw glimmers of it in the Sonic franchise. But he's not the same guy. He hasn't been for decades. I mean, I'd say that his last really good movie was what, Liar Liar? Why are they doing a stakeout on the ramen shop? Well, okay, see, they're waiting for a specific guy to come here, and so they're just basically, these guys are cops, and they're trying to catch a criminal. Yeah, they say he got a body double. Some, hey, Jade. And some people are saying that this makeup artist was impersonating him. What bothers me is that Jim Carrey himself hasn't come out and said anything about it. It's his management. It's those people that have said stuff. And I don't know how much to trust them. I don't know what's going on with Jim Carrey, but I mean, his verbiage, even when he was talking, it sounded wrong. It didn't sound like Jim Carrey. Now, I'm not saying he was replaced with a body double or a clone or anything like that. Although movie stars have used body doubles. So that wouldn't surprise me so much if he used a body double, because he's always hated public appearances. But like I said, since Man in the Moon, yeah, if Wendigoon has taught us anything, it's to trust nothing. I miss old school Wendigoon. it was such a short-lived that he was really good, and now it's just I don't know, it just feels different. Yeah, well, there's a lot of conspiracies around celebrities, and I think celebrities encourage it. I think they do these things just to get their name back out there. Because, I mean, doppelganger. I mean, they use that. I mean, that's the conspiracies. And obviously they will use body doubles here and there, but I don't think it's like nefarious. I think it's to throw people off so that they can get moments of peace. And they'll probably have body doubles. Okay, so how many people are familiar with Charlie Chaplin? Right. I don't know who that really is. I barely know who Selena Gomez is. But if you're familiar with Charlie Chaplin, okay, well, back in the day, he entered a Charlie Chaplin lookalike contest. He didn't win. I can't remember where he placed, but he didn't win. Dolly Parton's done the same thing and also didn't win. Because the body doubles can be more them than them in real life, because we're used to this image. Yeah, second, third, somewhere in that neighborhood. Well, I've never seen that one. But even with, the Grinch, he tried. He did a decent job. But again, it's not the Jim Carrey I grew up with. And between the movie 23, Man in the Moon, I think they took a toll on his psyche. I don't think he's ever been the same after those movies. And sure, he might put out a performance like you say in Scrooge. Right. But these are very mentally taxing, is what I mean. I'm not trying to be mean at all. I'm not trying to be derogatory. I mean, Jim Carrey growing up was one of my heroes. So please understand that, I admired him. I'm not trying to speak bad of him. I'm trying to explain why all of this might be happening. I don't think he's part of some, secret clandestine group and, he's doing some kind of blah, blah, blah ritual, blah, blah, blah conspiracy, blah, blah, blah. Triangles are the greatest thing. That kind of stuff. Like, that's not what I mean at all. What I mean is that sometimes actors, people age. And with these mentally demanding things, they do things they probably shouldn't to keep going, i.e. Heath Ledger, i.e., a lot of stars that have lost their mind to keep up with the schedule because what they're asked to do is extremely demanding. I think it's why a lot of them support the causes they do without thinking about it, without thinking about the wider ramifications. It's one of the reasons why I can't stand Mark Ruffalo. I know a lot of people love him, and that's fine. I'm not saying anybody's bad for liking him. But the roles he takes, the roles he accepts, I can't stand him. Same thing with Pedro Pascal. I liked him in a few things, and then all of a sudden he's everywhere. And I just get bored with it. And maybe that's just a me problem. Mr. Hansy, yeah, that's weird. Especially when he says it's because of, his anxiety. And yet he's only ever doing it to women, isn't he? I'd never seen him do that to a guy, a fellow co-star that's a male. It's always to women. So, I think he's just using it as an excuse. I think he, came to fame late in life. And now he's trying to get away with all the things he wants to see. Right? If it truly is just a coping mechanism, it should be, equal, but it's not. And that's what bothers me. And that's Really, that's the problem. I don't want to know about actors, celebrities, personal politics, personal thing. I don't care. Can they play the role? And I kind of talked about this, I think yesterday with CT, about how actors are brands now. They don't act anymore. You go to, I mean, it's like what Arnold Schwarzenegger and Stallone used to do. Arnold Schwarzenegger. Nice. Arnold Schwarzenegger can't act to save his life, or they wouldn't let him. You know, and that's the thing is like, right? Got me. Almost. It's that actors don't act anymore. Now, am I going to say they play themselves? No, they play this brand that they've drummed up. You know, where's the Oldmans? Where's Alan Rickman? You know, where are these people? You know, Gary Oldman, literally, I keep forgetting he's Gary Oldman. I mean, the fact that he played the villain in, was it Gary Oldman that played the villain in, no, Johnny Depp recently, like back in the day. Yeah, I'll give you that. He played a bunch of different roles. Recently, though, it's variations on Jack Sparrow because that's what people want of him. And I think Hollywood's really screwing themselves over by not letting actors act. Well, okay, take Walter Goggins. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with the TV show Justified. I'm not. But I watched a video recently about how, oh God, yeah, Danny DeVito, he could disappear into a role. You know, people forget how good he was, how much of an actor he really was. But there was a TV show Justified. It was one of Walton Goggins, who plays the ghoul in Fallout. It was one of his first like breakout roles, so to speak. It's the one where Hollywood realized they didn't know what to do with him because he was supposed to be a disposable villain. And instead he played in all 6 seasons because they had to rework the pilot to not kill him at the end. They realized that they had something great. And he literally, you know, because he kept his accent, because he blends into roles that he can actually act. Oh, yeah. Well, if you really want also another good Danny DeVito, watch Renaissance Man. That is a good Danny DeVito movie. A lot of people don't give it the love it deserves, but in my personal opinion, it was also another good Danny DeVito role. Even though he's played so many good ones. I don't know. It's just, I think Hollywood's really shooting themselves in the foot. And I mean, they were repeatedly doing it by making brands out of actors. Yeah, if you want another good stripper, there's I don't have a good name there. Sorry, I don't have a good joke for it. But where was I? That threw me off. Anyway, Hollywood has an issue with pigeonholing their actors, and we as don't apologize. And we as people have a problem pigeonholing actors. We expect to see them in certain things in certain ways. And if we don't get it, as a general rule, we get annoyed. I actually have a funny story about a stripper. Daniel Radcliffe wearing chaps dancing in a saloon. Why not just, what was that one thing he did? It had to do with horses anyway. Apparently he did it in the nude. Equus. Yes, that. Well, unfortunately, they just keep putting people in front. I mean, just look what they've done to money-making franchises. Probably because it's such a unique name. Although a damn good Daniel Radcliffe movie is Guns Akimbo. I like that movie better than any Harry Potter I watch. Also, I'm not a huge Harry Potter fan, so that's probably why. But Guns Akimbo was freaking brilliant. Oh, it was fun. I mean, literally somebody that has guns bolted to their hands, and they're like being hunted, I guess is the best way. It's like basically like a real life video game. That's literally the story, is he's being hunted, and if he survives, he wins, blah, blah, blah. But it gave me the feeling of Scott Pilgrim versus the World, the movie. But it's definitely not Scott Pilgrim versus the World, but it's that same kind of humor value. But see, that's the problem, is Hollywood stopped taking chances. Ever since they started spending, over, 100 to 500 million on a movie just to start, they've lost any chance of risk. I mean, look at some of the cult classics like Mallrats or Clerks. These things were made with such a small budget. I mean, just like we're going to have a new cult classic in Iron Lung. That's going to be something people pull out and watch every once in a while. I really hope Markiplier just throws it on his channel, instead of, trying to do some weird distribution with streaming services and blah, blah, blah. Just distribute it by your own channel. Why bow to all of that Hollywood nonsense? Right. The original Paranormal Activity literally put butts in seats. Blair Witch, they made it through underground friggin' fake news articles. Godzilla -1. What was it, a $15 million budget? They absolutely killed it with that. Hey, Ghost, how you doing? And I mentioned Markiplier and Ghost shows up. I've been summoned. And I'm really glad that Markiplier didn't bow to Hollywood to get his movie out there. I know he tried, but I think he needs to just keep doing what he does. I'd love him to actually flesh out his whole the Markiplier and Darkiplier. The Jekyll and Hyde variant. And I'd actually like to see him do a movie about that. Like a whole ass movie about it with a plot. Even if it is just him again. Because if Markiplier proved anything, he can do what most stars can't. Oh, we're just talking Hollywood itself and just weird stuff. Just randomness. I don't really have a huge plan. I started talking about, Jim Carrey and how he's kind of losing his marbles and people are thinking he's been replaced. And I just honestly think he's just getting old and afraid of not being in the limelight, to be honest. Because he's always been very tiny box Tim. Yeah, there's that. He's always been insecure and self-conscious. Oh, hi, baby. Yeah, I know. It's storming outside. Oh, and if I suddenly go dark, it's because my power went out. I'm having some heavy winds tonight. No rain yet, but it's been blowing pretty hard. Well, I don't even think it was really a botched surgery. Okay. Well, I just know that we're getting heavy winds.
Yes, hi, baby. Hi. Yes, you're such a good girl.
You ask for attention. But so, I mean, I don't normally lose power because I'm so close to town, but I do occasionally lose it. And if I can come back, I'll come back, but I don't know how long it'd last. Or also, I just might lose internet, even though I haven't done that yet. Yeah, I'd be surprised if I lost internet before power, put it that way. But yeah, with Hollywood, I think that, you know, people talk about humiliation rituals and how, you know, actors have to do certain things, you know, or they don't get into it. You know, I even saw a video earlier, I think it was today, that I couldn't believe I saw. I actually sat and watched it, but I didn't subscribe to the person, so I don't want to point them out. But it was basically an apology video, or not. No, I wouldn't call it an apology video. Sorry, that would be misspeaking. But basically, the idea is say what you will about Harvey Weinstein behind closed doors. The guy knew how to pick movie stars, and no, that's not how it was at all. Like, one, I think that person's brain was a little rotted because, no, Harvey Weinstein's money is what made stars. It didn't matter if the person could act or not. You dealt with the humiliation he would go through. You dealt, you know, paid your dues to become a star, quote unquote, and he'd make you a star because his money would make you a star. His power and influence would make you a star. It's not whether you could act or whether you were any good. I mean, think about how many actors we've seen that are garbage, but they keep getting roles. One good example is Kevin Hart. I don't understand what people see in him. I'm not familiar with what you're talking about, Infinite. Oh, Ashley Judd. Right. This wasn't Ashley Judd. But if you pay attention to the people that snubbed Weinstein, they never made it big, even though you thought they should have. I mean, look at Michael Jai White. He should have been a much bigger actor than he was. Mario Van Peebles should have been a much bigger actor than he was. You know, there's a lot of actors that we saw a lot of potential in, but oh, they just couldn't capitalize. And then you find out that basically they were blacklisted. They weren't allowed to become bigger actors because they just couldn't get the role. Oh, they couldn't play the role. And yet you have these wooden people like Rachel Zegler who can't act their way out of a wet paper bag. You know, I'm not even caring about her friggin' comments. I'm just saying that she's not a good actress. You know, you see some of these people and I don't see how they keep getting roles. And I realize I'm pretty critical. Well, don't even get me started on Gwyneth Paltrow and what's going on with her and what's wrong with her brain. Wait, is that Gwyneth Paltrow? Yeah, that's Gwyneth Paltrow. But, you know, all of these people that sit here and want to, you know, support all of these extra things and all of that, it really torques me off because they knew what was going on. Oh, we just couldn't say, it would sacrifice my career. And it's like, so what? Me personally, it's like, you're not willing to save the people around you. You're not willing to save someone else. You aren't willing to take the bullet for other people to be the hero. Nah. Like, I don't care. I mean, Ashley Judd's probably one of the few that I would actually applaud because she at least tried. But some of these others, it's like, you know, they knew. A lot of the male actors, you know, they knew. Like, you're kidding me, right? You're kidding me that you just like glossed it over to keep your career. Who cares? It's the right thing to do.
Yes, hi, I hear you.
Well, not just an amazing martial artist. If I remember right, he was the one that played the original live action Spawn. You want to talk an actor that blends into things? The guy that played the Violator in that, the clown. Oh my God, he also played Sid the Sloth in Ice Age. Why am I blanking on his name? I can see his face. He also played Luigi in the old Super Mario Brothers movie. What is this? What is his name? That's gonna bug me. John Leguizamo. Yes, John Leguizamo. I didn't realize in watching the live action Spawn that that was John Leguizamo actually acting like the Violator. He was in a clown costume that made him look like 3 times as wide and half as tall. It was hilarious. They made John Leguizamo look like Danny DeVito on a bad day. Which is impressive. But yeah, I mean, these actors should have, I mean, speaking of people that should have gone further, John Leguizamo. You know, I mean, that guy should have had a lot more roles. But he didn't. Why? Well, because he wasn't willing to pay the entrance fee, is my guess. Even though he gets these roles here and there, but he never got his own role, if that makes sense. And that's what should really tell you who's willing to pay the entrance fee. I mean, why do you think Mel Gibson lost his mind? He had to pay the entrance fee. And as stupid as he was also very vocally critical of Hollywood itself and how things went in, but they hushed it up.
Hi, yes. Yes, you tapped me on the butt. I felt it.
Sorry, she's being very insistent. It's because the storm's coming in.
Yes, you need extra comfort. It's okay.
Not that you'll let me pick you up and actually comfort you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I make you into a little burrito, as Andy likes to call it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you start looking at some of these actors that have been in a lot of things, but never went anywhere. You know, they talk about, oh, you know, they've been in so many flops that they just can't get another role. Oh, yeah? Well, how about Jared Leto? The guy hasn't had a successful role in a decade. And yet he's still getting roles. As a front man in some of them. I mean, Morbius, Tron Ares, these were flops. Like, people literally avoid watching movies with him in it. Because he's a freak. He's not somebody people want to support. I mean, pardon my language. I mean, maybe I'm absolutely wrong here, but that's how I feel about it. You know, I mean, I'm not going to support some actor that has a friggin' cult. Look it up. He literally kind of does. You know, it brings me back to the old Nexium stuff and how a lot of young actresses were ruined. Yeah, Jared Leto. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Jared Leto has a cult. He has I think it's down in, I want to say Australia or New Zealand, but don't quote me on it. I can't remember exactly. Yeah, he's garbage. Ezra Miller was trying to basically copy him. Yeah, exactly. Ezra Miller's a freak. Also, and I don't even mean, you know, their pronouns, I don't give a crap. Even though I think they specifically were using it as a badge, or as a shield, one of the two. But Ezra really should have been able to be arrested on a lot more than what they really were. And the fact that they got a starring role still I mean, speaking of stuff like that, look at Jonathan Majors. So I know he's kind of persona non grata, but apparently it never even went to court. I thought he was like going, I thought Jonathan Majors, the guy that was supposed to play King, I thought he like was arrested and stuff like that. Well, come to find out, he was never even arrested. He just had accusations levied, but nobody ever pressed charges. Yeah. It's why Jared Leto can't get, or people don't watch his roles, because people who know don't watch him because he's creepy. I mean, a lot of these people in politics knew about certain people in certain files. Well, so did a lot of people in Hollywood. Yeah, super weird to his co-star. So was Ezra Miller. I mean, it's the problem that Hollywood has right now by not putting morality clauses into contracts like they used to. And I know that might seem harsh, but these movie companies are putting a whole lot of money, a whole lot of their company into each one of these roles these stars are doing. And if something the star does outside of the contract tanks it, they need to find some way to be held accountable. I mean, Hollywood used to have these show marriages between, movie stars just to drum up more seats and, butts and seats. But also, I mean, I have a question for people. About how many times a month do you go to the movies? Because I know I'm super low. So, using me as an average would be super wrong. But like, how many movies do people go to in a month? Once or twice a year. It depends on the movies, but I would say, yeah, I might go once every, 3. Yeah, that's about average. And yet Hollywood, like, what is it? Paramount's with this new deal with HBO and all of that going through, I guess the whole WB Paramount thing is happening. HBO. Yeah, about 3 to 4 movies a year. That's pretty much. And over the last few years previously, I may have gone to 1 a year. But they're like trying to put out 30 movies a year. And that's one studio. Yes. See, I wait for good movies to come out. And over the last few years, I haven't wanted to watch any Marvel movies. I haven't wanted to watch any Star Wars movies. And nothing else captured my attention. But Iron Lung, I bought reserve tickets. I wanted to make sure I could get into the movie. The new Superman I watched. Was it? And when Cater worked at the movie theater, I got to watch a few more movies, but I wasn't paying to get into those. Right. And that's all I'm saying is the average person doesn't really go to the movies that often. Yet they're trying to crap out 30 some odd movies. I remember when you might have 2 movies a month come out, like at all. And when you went to the movies, it was a big deal. Well, see, Infinite, I wouldn't buy snacks. And the tickets were free because Tater worked at the movie theater. And even then, we could have gone like once a day. But even then, we'd only go to movies that we wanted to watch, which was only like a couple of times. Because I went and watched Wolfman Mickey 17, which I sorely regret, even though I mean, it was a waste of my money. And I didn't pay to get into Mickey 17. If they stopped making it the average price of my car payment, I would probably buy popcorn and drink. You know, that's something that movie theaters really need to understand, is that if they support more indie projects and snub their nose at Hollywood, one, they can hold more of the ticket receipts. If they reduce the price of popcorn and drink and all of that, because you know it doesn't cost them that much. Well, some of these specialty popcorn buckets are going for 80 to $100. Yeah, sure, you get a large popcorn or it's, refillable. I don't. I probably could, but I choose not to. I'm just that kind of guy. I don't like breaking rules. I mean, especially when my kid is the one working there. So I'm not going to do that. Right. Well, okay. See, if I make a big project going out to the movies and watching a movie, I will get a drink. Right. See, that's what I'd do. If I'm making a big project out of it, I like to get, and this sounds weird, but I like to get a large drink, a hot dog, and red vines. Because Cinemark's hot dogs are actually pretty good. Yeah, $60 ain't bad for what you're getting, but still, I don't know. It seems stupid for a popcorn bucket. Especially when they're just 3D printing it. Right? Tater brought me home a Jaws 30th anniversary popcorn bucket, which was an actual bucket, like a chum bucket. It's funny. Right. See, that's the other thing that absolutely pisses me off. These exclusive limited time crap absolutely torques me. Because what's the point? They're putting exclusive limited time on it when, yeah, duh, that's obvious. People call, fast fashion. It's like, yeah, of course. Walmart doesn't keep those printed shirts in everywhere. Ooh, Godzilla Kong one. That's kind of cool. But of course, these things are limited time. They're only going to be there for the movie. Duh. Like you feel like you have to buy it because, they put that exclusive limited time on it. But like everything's exclusive limited time. Even cars. They only have that model out for so many years before they either change it up or, graveyard the model. Yeah, you got the D&D cup. Right. I mean, they are pretty cool. And it's great to get it, but they're using that title of exclusive limited time to basically create fear of missing out. Yeah, that's kind of how it works. I mean, I'll be honest, Tater probably brought home several $100s worth of cups or buckets that were limited time and stuff like that. When she moved out, she took them with her, which I'm perfectly fine with. The only one she didn't take was the Jaws bucket because that was mine. Which I thought was really cool of her to bring it home specifically for me. I use it to hold random cords that I might need. And yeah, they are pretty cool, but they're just cheap plastic. They don't cost them $80 or $60 to make. That's the thing is that They might sell a whole lot more of them at the same profit margin if they didn't sell them for so expensive. You know, the prices have gotten out of whack of what actually costs them to make them. I mean, a lot of them are made pretty cheap too. Like the Captain America one for Brave New World, half the buckets had the shield they were supposed to go with it, but half the buckets, the shield was bent. So even then they couldn't sell half of them because they were bent. Well, they didn't sell them. They actually sent them back to the manufacturer. So an already limited supply became even more limited because they couldn't sell them. So they only had half the amount that was on the floor. And even some of the ones that ended up on the floor had flaws. You know, there's no quality control. Most of these, they make it look cool. But in reality, it's made from garbage that's polished. Because Hollywood finally figured out how to polish a turd. A lot of these movies that we're getting are polished turds. They use a lot of special effects and all of this stuff, but the actual plot and acting is garbage. You know, people said the Thunderbolts or New Avengers was such a damn good movie, but yet afterwards, I don't hear anybody talking about it. And it's like how me and my buddies, we used to joke about Avatar. Avatar, one of the highest grossing movies forever. Actually, I think it is the highest. And oh my God, after it was out of theaters, nobody really talked about it. It didn't change cinema. It didn't change anything. It had a whole bunch of factors that came with it. The fact that we were finally getting damn good CGI. It was coupled with the 3D effect that was brand new. If Avatar came out today, it wouldn't have made half the money, nor had half the persistence. I guarantee you. Because it would be a movie that was in a wash of the same thing. Hell, the only reason why it got probably half the ticket sales in the sequels is because of that je ne sais quoi, that special something that the original Avatar had. And Avatar was a good movie. Don't get me wrong. It was a good movie, but it wasn't better than a lot of other movies. They're on the third, because you had Way of Water, Fire and Ash. And I think they're done with. They might do a fourth. I know they were supposed to do 6 of them. But I think James Cameron has basically said, no, we're not going to make enough money off of them. Because they're not breaking even. These movies are costing them. The last one cost them 300 or 400 million. 500 million, somewhere in that neighborhood to make. And it's not breaking, or, however much. I know it's barely breaking even. It's not worth the risk because they're on diminishing returns. And honestly, they just keep telling the same story over and over again. I mean, come on. Somehow the general returned. Are you kidding me? It's the same freaking story. Hey, if you guys love it, more power to you. That's fine. Maybe I should shut up because maybe you guys actually like it. But in my personal opinion, they're nostalgia baiting. 5 movies. Well, as far as I know, James Cameron has said that he's not going to be on board. And yeah, and what a lot of people don't realize is that Avatar really only made its money overseas. We talk a whole lot about Avatar, but in reality, that was the other factor that I forgot to mention about the first Avatar. It was one of the first movies big budget box office movie, tent pole, whatever you want to call it, that made it over into China, that the Chinese censors allowed. So it had a lot larger audience available to it than previous movies. And because it was such a generic mishmash of just spectacle, China let it in and people liked it. I remember wondering what a lot of people saw in it. I enjoyed the movie for what it was. Avatar, not The Last Airbender, James Cameron movies. They were one of the first that literally could be a worldwide release, like actual worldwide. So its audience numbers were much higher than its competing movies. It's really hard to get away from the Chinese censors. Yeah, they're boring. They are absolutely boring movies. They have some very glorious visuals. Right? Yeah, see, Jade probably had the same thing I did. It was just like, okay. And when I watched it, it's like, yeah, it's a good movie, but it doesn't deserve the box office receipts. But, Hollywood lies to itself by saying, oh, this was a great movie, when it's the only one worth watching because the other two are the same thing. I mean, it's these stupid ideas of making a sequel 20 years later. What's the point? Hollywood right now is crapping out so many movies. I mean, it's almost like every weekend there's a new movie in the theaters. That's 52 movies a year. And sometimes that's just from one studio. And like I said, Paramount HBO is supposed to put out 30 movies in a year. 30. Oh, God. I wouldn't even call the story okay, but that's because I was a Transformers fan when I was a kid. And the Transformers story they were telling was not the one I grew up with. Transformers was blah. Well, the only reason why they keep making Fast and the Furious movies is because Vin Diesel keeps putting his money into it. He's the only reason why they keep making new ones. He's really not taking that much of a profit off of the movies. And me personally, here's a controversial opinion. The best Fast and the Furious movie that I've ever watched was Tokyo Drift, the one without Vin Diesel. Oh, yeah. The CGI was good. Story was not the Transformers story at all. But Tokyo Drift was the best Fast and the Furious movie. I enjoyed that movie. The others were beautiful car designs, and that's about it. That's my personal feelings about it. Sorry. I know I've probably pissed off a lot of people with Fast and the Furious fans. But the fact is Vin Diesel's not also that great of an actor. I mean, brilliant movie in Pitch Black. We didn't need the Riddick verse. Death Race did it better. Okay. Which Death Race? The remake, the modern remake, or the original? Oh, and by the way, I also think Quentin Tarantino is an overblown director. He's not that freaking creative. He borrows heavily from what came before him. The only real original movie he had was Pulp Fiction. Kill Bill? Please. I was so bored with that. It was literally a retelling of an old Kung Fu theater movie called The Bride. You know how, oh wait, wasn't the main character in that called The Bride? Like, he stole everything. Although half of Dusk Till Dawn was pretty good. The second half I was bored with. I liked the first half. The second half was just like, okay, yeah, another zombie shooter, even though it's supposed to be vampires. All right. Ooh, that wasn't predictable. And yes, I know 2 different people wrote the script, and it's the second half that was written by the other guy. But I thought Quentin Tarantino was on a good story with the brothers and kidnapping the family. And then once they get to the bar, I was just, really? But yet everybody remembers the bar. They don't remember the thriller. It was almost like, you know, the script writer couldn't figure out how to end it, so they threw in a monster movie in an effort to redeem the big bad. Yeah, the OG Death Race came out in 70s. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I noticed a lot of people went quiet when I said Quentin Tarantino was overblown. Whoops. Or was it you know, my take on Transformers and the horrid storytelling? I don't know. You know, there's one, I don't think Michael Bay is a good director. I also don't think Zack Snyder is a good director. Same with Tim Burton. Well, okay, the first Transformers was fun. You got the cool CGI, the transforming. Okay. Well, I like movies, but the problem is that I've watched so many growing up that I see these repeating patterns. That even when Hollywood doesn't say it, they're stealing from somewhere. Well, Transformers Beast Wars, yeah. Honestly, I thought that was one of the better storylines. Optimus Primal. I never watched their first, well, maybe I did. Was that Talk to Me? Was the Rocka Rocka brothers? Yeah. Okay, I like Talk to Me, but I think the ending fell flat. I don't think it deserved, not to, you know, pun here, but all the talk. Yeah, the other one is Bring Her Back, which Tater told me was really good. Tater actually liked that better than Bring Her Back, or better than Talk to Me, but still thought they leaned too heavy into shock value rather than actually telling a story. But Tater's also critical of movies like I am. So see, yeah, exactly. See, and that's what Tater told me. There was some scenes in there that made whoever she was watching with, I think it was her boyfriend, very uncomfortable, chewing into something, if I remember correctly. And that's what I'm saying is that it's leaning into the shock value. It's why if I tell people to watch The Evil Dead, I always tell them to watch Evil Dead 2, not Evil Dead 1. Because Evil Dead 1 and Evil Dead 2 are basically the same exact story. Right. You know, and that's what I'm saying is like, sure, if you like that kind of stuff, go right ahead. Like, more power to you. I like stories with either heart, with it takes a lot of CGI for me to turn my brain off. I like good story. Like most of the people that were critical of the new Superman movie, I think are being overcritical. I think they're being kind of stupid. Yes. The Terrifier, not Terrier, the Terrifier, yes, is a gore fest, but it's a goofy gore fest. See, and that's the thing. I actually like Terrifier because I don't take it seriously. It's not done realistically. It's just stupid fun. It's just stupid fun. But like Evil Dead 1, they tried to make a serious horror movie. And people found it more humorous in the parts where it was supposed to be because they did too realistic. So in Evil Dead 2, they basically did the exact same story and leaned into the humor value and balanced the horror elements with humor. And it worked great. Army of Darkness was basically a parody. It was a lot more comedic and personally, my favorite. Yes, I saw where they were making Scary Movie 6. And honestly, I think it looks better than I expected. It looks better than the last 3. No, 4. No, 2. Sorry, I was thinking of 4 and 5 when I said 4. Because 1, 2, and 3, pretty decent as parody movies go. 4 and 5 were almost a parody of parody movies. You know, I like movies that don't, like, if they know they don't have it what it takes to make it good. I like the fact when they don't take it too seriously. Yeah, exactly. They tried too hard. And basically right now, Hollywood has a plague of using what do I say? Using existing intellectual property. What I mean by that is Star Wars, Transformers, you know, they're using these things to get butts in seats, and they assume that it is going to make people come to watch it anyway. You know, like Scary Movie is now a brand. That's why they're doing it, because they don't really want to come up with a whole new parody of scary movies. They're just going to do Scary Movie. Even though I think that the studio that did Scream really should have done Stab. Like, they really should have just parodied their own movie a year later. Like, if they were really smart, they would have had Scream 1 and then they done Stab, you know, and played off that idea and make Stab an in-world to the Scream franchise movie series that you actually get to go watch, rather than just being a nod to how ridiculous they're being. Making a companion movie that comes out the next year to keep people tied to the property, but not oversaturated. Because that's where a lot of people come. That's where a lot of studios screw up, is they oversaturate. I like Scream. Scream's fun. But I will be back in 5 minutes because it's going to run the ad. So I will be right back. Whoops, wrong one. We're on talk time. So what are you guys talking about? Bunny warriors come out of the forest, raising their spears. Oh, on the Be Right Back. Yeah, the bunny. Carrots. Yeah. It's the neon room symbol. I had my channel names in the scene. Hid. Let's be honest here. Oh, so you didn't get me. I think a lot of people put Hollywood on a pedestal. You were targeting Gigi. Okay. And they forget that Hollywood only cares about the money and that the real people in power you never see. You know, it's like most things I know it's a trope. I know it's a conspiracy theory from back in the day of how, you know, oh, the elites, you know, you never really see the elites. They're always in control. Well, the truth is they are. You don't put $100 to $500 million into a project without having some guarantees that you're going to get some of your money back, if not all of it, in one manner or another. What did I ever do to you, Greenie? You know, and I think that's a large problem. Well, like, okay, here's a thought I had. So you go back in the day and you go and watch Lost Boys. I know a few of you watched it. I hope you enjoyed it because it's one of my favorite movies out of the horror genre. But I wonder how many people actually realize that it was just a retelling of Peter Pan. Like how many of you realize that it was actually a retelling of Peter Pan? Well, true. I mean, it literally was in the title, Lost Boys. And, you know, the main vampires you're dealing with are the Lost Boys. The mom's boyfriend is Peter. Because he makes sure the kids never age. You know, but also in modern day and age, would that movie have ever gotten made? No. They wouldn't do it. It's not really. Well, even down to their secret hideout. Right? Like once you see it, it's like, you know, that's actually hard to unsee. But that's okay. See, that's the point. Yes. Although there's also good evidence that he was a vampire too. The grandpa was an actual vampire. Remember, he had that drawer that you never drink, you know, you could never drink. You know, his food. Yeah, there's a theory that he was also a vampire. That's why he could recognize him. That's why he never went into town. He hated him. I mean, there's little secrets in that movie that a lot of people didn't see. But I don't even know if it was literally, yeah, probably a former Lost Boy. Yeah. I mean, that's the point. You know, and that's a thing Hollywood has lost. Yes, exactly. Yeah, not just saxophone guy, but the whole band. They were the Mermaids. You know, I mean, once you see it, it's really hard. You start seeing the parallel. Right? It's beautiful. It's an awesome, but Hollywood would never do that because they have lost all idea of nuance. I mean, I really want to watch Iron Lung again because I know there's a crap ton of nuance I missed that I just didn't see, and I want to see it. You know, I mean, what was the other movie that I watched? I can't remember. Anyway, there's a lot of smaller movies that have a lot of nuance, and that's what makes them called classic, because people can sit there and get these little nods and these little Easter eggs. Well, the Marvel movies just puts them out there for you to see. And there's 10 million, paid people to talk about the Easter eggs that you may have missed. It blows me away that some of these people had to have this stuff pointed out. I've watched breakdowns of movies and, Easter eggs, and I'm just like, really? I thought that was fairly obvious, that they were leaning into this or that. Speaking of weird movies that probably wouldn't get made, but did. So have you guys seen the previews for Pinocchio Unstrung? From the same guys that brought you Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey? They upped their game a lot. And I don't mean in the way of blood and guts, but I actually think they have a winner with this one. It is going to be a good horror movie. I mean, Robert Englund playing Jiminy Cricket. Freddy. Freddy being the conscience of Pinocchio. Yes. But it's also based on Robert Englund and Freddy Krueger. They're all dead. Robert Englund's not dead. Is he? I don't think he's dead yet. I mean, I know he's getting old, but I don't think he's dead yet. Okay. But either way, I mean, the movie actually looks like a good schlocky horror film. Yeah, probably a little bit more blood and guts. Oh yeah, they're all dead. Yeah, the characters are all dead. I guarantee it. But that's the point. Right? I mean, to be perfectly honest, the preview I saw of Pinocchio Unstrung really makes me think of the Evil Dead franchise. It's that kind of schlocky horror that's going to be fun to watch, even if it is kind of gross. It's just, overdone with the slasher stuff, but it's done in such a way that because it is so over the top, it comes around to humor. And at least that's my take on it. And I think it's just a good classic slasher film that doesn't take itself too seriously because they know the premise is kind of ridiculous. And if this is the way they're going, I mean, one, how are you really going to make a horror movie out of Winnie the Pooh? I get it that that's what they were going for, but I'm kind of curious because I know they have plans on making the whole verse, like making all the movies tie together in some way. And I think as they get more experience in doing the movies, I think they're smart in using these characters that are open to being used as long as you don't go step on somebody else's interpretation of them, which I seriously doubt they will. Right? Only in a good way.
Meow. Again?
Either way, I'm actually really excited, that Hollywood, while the big studios are becoming these big giant conglomerates of we're your everything store, basically we're creating by and large from the Pixar verse. The true villain of Pixar. But what we're getting into is like indie creators that can, on a shoestring budget, can make something much more than they could have just even 5-10 years ago. And because theaters are starving to get butts in seats, Hollywood proper is going to lose those butts to indie programs. And with Markiplier, with all of this stuff, these smaller guys being able to prove they can do it. I mean, look at how fast A24 rose, or Blumhouse. Look at how fast they rose, and they were independent studios. They were nobodies. That's what kills me, is that we're into an era where we have phones that have movie quality cameras. Have they collabed yet? Well, I know Markiplier is being bombarded on all sides now that he had Iron Lung, and yeah, that was to be expected. Well, good. Blade Runner miniseries could be fun. See, I would love more stories told in the Blade Runner verse, but not centered around the Blade Runner storyline. Just other people, other stories, which I think would be fun to do with a miniseries. Basically it'd be, basically the rise of Weyland Yutani out of the Blade Runner verse, because we now know, we've confirmed right. Well, and see, I think the Markiplier needs to explore Darkiplier. Who confirmed it? Ridley Scott. The company that made the Sense eventually becomes Weyland Yutani. But like I was saying, Ghost, I would love to see Markiplier do a Markiplier, Darkiplier, Jekyll and Hyde movie, exploring his own basically IP. That he's kind of hinted around the edges and had fun. Also, I mean, you could even bring Lunky into it. And, Lixian, you could do more with what these little storylines that he's hinted at. Even though they were just off the cuff, there's more you could do there. And I think it would be a lot of fun, even though I know they're gags. Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that Blade Runner, Prometheus, and Aliens are all in the same world. You know, they're all tied together. Yeah, Blade Runner is basically the prequel to the Aliens verse. It's where it starts. I mean, it was hinted at in the first Alien movie. Right. In the first Alien movie, Sigourney Weaver calls the synth a skin job, which is slang right out of Blade Runner. Like, it's been there from the beginning. But most people just thought they used that because he was the director for Blade Runner. But he's actually confirmed that in his mind, they're part of the same verse. It's just Blade Runner's the prequel. Because Aliens takes place several hundred years later, or 100 years later, or something like that. You know, I mean, right? Like if you really think about that, there's a whole lot going on, even if Prometheus, in my opinion, was kind of a misstep. I think the story was okay, but I think they could have done a lot better actually in putting it together. There was a lot of mistakes. But that's just me. You have a good night, XO. But it's hard to explain, the potential I see in what Markiplier did. Because not so much with just how well he acted in Iron Lung, but with what he did. Right? Yes. You have a wonderful day. Good luck on your endeavors, whatever they may be. Because Markiplier did something that very few have ever done before. And had such success that Hollywood is actually kind of scared. They're actually terrified of what they saw. That some no-name guy, to them, mind you, not to the rest of the world, but to them, he had no name, and he was able to pull off a coup, for lack of a better term, in the box office. I think the last I heard, he's made over 10 times, because it was 40 mil. Last I heard that it had made with off a budget of 3 mil. That's well over 10 times, 11, 12, 13 times the budget plus. That's huge. Hollywood hasn't had a return on a movie like that in forever. And even if you figure that half of the proceeds go back to the studio, or not the studios, but back to the theaters, that the ticket price was shared, 50-50. That's still, his take home is 20 mil off a $3 million movie. That's still almost 7 times budget. No, I don't think I have watched that one. Might have to look into that, because that sounds kind of interesting. Even if I think zombie movies are kind of played out. I mean, basically, once you figure out that basic armor, basically makes you zombie proof, the only thing you have to worry about is crushes. as getting stuck in a zombie herd. You know, basically after the first year or so of a zombie apocalypse, a zombie outbreak, all the bad luck and poor prepared people would be zombies. So after that, you just build your society back up, because zombies now would be a limited resource. They couldn't just keep coming back. I don't know. You know, it's the fact that Hollywood has all the money and none of, bulldozers, 50 cals, and burn pits. Done. You know, a basic moat would take out 90% of the zombies. After that, just stakes. I mean, they even did that in Walking Dead. Just a few rows of, sharpened wooden stakes, and you'd clear out an area real quick. Because the zombies are dumb. They just come at you. You know, that's the problem with most zombie movies is they're super limited. You know, I still don't know how Walking Dead has so many episodes, how many seasons and spin-off shows. It's not that good of a show. I'm sorry. I got bored with the main show. Why would I go watch the others? Because they just kept doing drama for drama's sake. You know, even though I do have a love for zombie stuff, like I like the idea, I like that, but you just can't really do it right. You would have to have an inside man. You'd have to have something that makes it more dramatic or more believable. Even World War Z, you know, I mean, wasn't that like, it was good as a one-off movie. You couldn't make a franchise out of it. You know, you literally have to have protagonists that are so incompetent that they just keep screwing up. That they can't defend their own borders, and somebody in their number is going to get bit and hid, you know, hide it, or take down a section of the fence or whatnot. I mean, the whole idea of you have to keep moving. As much as I like the Walking Dead verse, reality kind of sets in after a time that you keep making mistakes. You know, I mean, ultimately just get into a high-rise building and knock out the stairs behind you, rooftop garden, and you have the ladders that you bring up and take down, you know, create drawbridges to area, you know, other buildings, clear the buildings, take out, you know, the stairs at the first floor, so you have all the other floors. Boom, done. You can take over a city, a building at a time, and you can end up with a whole lot. And you can guard it from pretty much anybody. It's basic castle defense. You know, you literally have real life tower defense. But hey, what do I know? You know, it's to me, it seems, you know, rather limited in how they think people would respond. You think, these people, oh, they take everything, the people are always going to be assholes. Most people are going to hunker down and avoid others. Your super aggressives are going to be dead. Simple as that. Super aggressive people, your hoarders, your stuff like that. The people that actually the plot lines of Walking Dead center around, their own people are going to eat them alive. Because there's more fear of telling the truth of a bite in a community like that, like the governor, like transit, than there is in a group like Rick's, where they might try to find a way around it. I mean, hell, the vet, Herschel, they took off his leg to save his life. So you're not, there's a chance to save people who got bit. That's my point is like that the Walking Dead storyline doesn't make any sense once you stop and think about it. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Sorry if I'm stomping on people's fandoms. I apologize, but that's just, you'd have to have some other kind of impetus, some other kind of storyline to keep it rolling. Some other factor, like even if you do headshots and you take down the zombies, something makes them get back up after a time. Because first few seasons super hot weather is going to dry them out. They're going to be jerky, and every time they move, they're going to be snapping apart. First freeze is going to do basically the same thing. So what do? You go to either super hot deserts, which would be really hard to survive in, or you go to cold climates that have a good winter's frost and freeze, and you take care of them. I mean, it'd just basically be the same way we deal with ticks and fleas. Sorry, I've obviously thought about zombie apocalypse and how would I survive. I apologize. Apparently, I'm. Yes, the mysterious fruit stand carts. I'm sorry if I offended anybody that, I know Walking Dead has a huge fandom, and I'm sorry, but I just honestly don't understand how it keeps going. I don't. How many times can you have somebody on the inside betray you? How many different storylines are there really in The Walking Dead to keep the show interesting? So, I mean, that's just my point of view on it. Yeah, it died with Glenn. That's literally where I stopped. I was like, okay, yeah, I'm done. Well, it was just like Game of Thrones. I stopped watching Game of Thrones when Joffrey died. The boy king. Okay, yeah, I saw the one guy I really wanted to see dead die. I'm out. Because after that, it was just spectacle for spectacle's sake. There was no reason behind it. The creativity was bankrupt. And that's one of the things that I see in a lot of these shows is just how bankrupt they really are in their concepts and their ideas. And how many times they tell the same damn story with different trappings on it. They change the curtains and the carpet, but it's basically the same room. They do it in every movie franchise. You know, the only one that seems relatively fun to do because they set it up properly is Aliens, the Aliens franchise. Because they have the impetus for why the aliens keep showing up in Weyland-Yutani. Weyland-Yutani wants the perfect predator. They've been trying to bring a live specimen back to them for how long? And these stupid people keep, you know, taking out their supplies. Yeah, they get annoyed. You know, they have to send another group out to go get it. And it makes sense. 237 years, right? You know, and that's the point is that they keep trying. It's been set up. You understand it. You get why they do it. And even though it's the same thing over and over again, it makes sense. Because the setup of the story was right. If Walking Dead had a different mechanism for the virus, rather than just being bitten, you know, that was found out later on, just coming in contact with the corpses, you know, of zombies. If you're around them too much, you know, you'd eventually get infected and it basically has to overwhelm your immune system. You know, and it would have been even better if they had some people that just happened to be naturally immune, that the zombie virus wouldn't get them. And that, say, you know, they learned that if they gave, you know, if they had enough donors, blood donors of the right people, they could basically make a zombie vaccine for people, but it only worked for a certain amount of time. And they only had a limited number of immune people, you know, and they had to make sure that they had all the right people with the right blood type because they didn't have advanced medical facilities to isolate it. So you could only do it through blood transfusion. And it could cure people. So you could actually you know, you had a certain people to protect, and that every single one you lost was a big deal. You know, you had characters that you could center the whole story around, that they're the immune. You know, you could have extended that story and actually made it a big deal where these people are trying to go about saving as many people as they can. You know, that would have been a brilliant concept. In my mind, of course, I'm going to say it's a brilliant concept. I came up with it. But you know what I mean? You know, it's like if I can sit here and spitball an idea off the cuff, it baffles me that Hollywood writers can't come up with better stories than they have in several different stories. And whether people liked them or not enough liked like The Acolyte. Not enough liked, well, the last season of Stranger Things. You know, these properties that people really liked, whether they're new or old, not enough people really like it to really make it worth your time afterwards. And I can't imagine if I was somebody making a TV show, like in a franchise, you know, or not even in a franchise world, but you know, if I'm making a TV show that's supposed to span, you know, multiple episodes, multiple years, I'm going to have a plot by plot for 5 years minimum, you know, or 2 years minimum. You know, don't invest too much, maybe just 2 years. Put 2 years of effort into it to have this beat for beat, plot for plot for 2 years. But be aware that you're going to possibly have to change it because certain characters get cast with stars that capture the audience more so. But you should basically have a plot Bible sitting there. Did you know where it's going? that you have an idea of where to take the story so that you can have that 2 years. And you have that 2 years to come up with, oh, wait, they ordered, 5 seasons. Well, now I can take it 5 seasons. Like, you get what I mean? It's like you can extend the story, but you should have a solid idea and not be writing the script as you're filming the last episode for the last episode. That's when you end up with trash TV. That's when you end up with garbage. And personally, I think a lot of these guys come into it with this basic idea and no way to get, connect the dots. They have these ideas, but they don't have any way to connect them. And I think that's really sad because we live in a day and age where you can have let's be honest. The seasons of TV shows right now, especially like with your Netflix and your Amazon Primes and everything, each episode really isn't an episode. The whole thing is one long ass movie. They're not really filmed like episodes. I think that's also what's causing a lot of the fatigue is that each episode isn't complete. It doesn't go from point A to point B. You're just along for the ride and then it just ends. So you have to come back the next week when the next episode airs. Not only that, but they've shortened the episode counts by so much that, 7 seasons of Walking Dead would have been like 2 seasons of any regular TV show when I was growing up. They had 23, 24 episodes. Well, hello, Ninetales. Welcome in. I understand the lateness. I think the revisions made more sense than, just listening to me yammer on about Hollywood, which is what I've been doing. You as a writer might actually understand this. I was talking about how modern TV shows aren't really TV shows. They're long ass movies. They're written not as an episode of getting from point A to point B to point C to point D, as you go through your 13 episode run. Well, actually, sorry, most of them now are 8 episodes, which pisses me off because it's not really a TV show then. Minimum you should have 13, but most shows I grew up with had like 23, 24. You watch the show half the year. You had summer off. And then, once you're going back into school time, the show picked back up again. But they've shortened it all. It's ridiculous because they're not even able to tell a shortened story well. Shows used to be capsulated. You might have an overarching storyline, little subtext, nuances going through. But now they're just these giant ass movies that the episodes just leave you on a cliffhanger. There's no resolution, so you start getting fatigued. Right. Yeah, I've heard about Dead Boy Detectives. I haven't watched that one myself, but I have heard about it. And yeah, and how, they don't really know what they're doing, even though they know that they have. Well, I was speaking on Stranger Things season 5 and how the last episode they were filming as they were writing the episode. Like, how do you not have a plan for what you're doing? You should have, before you start filming, your episodes written. Hell, isn't that what the Duffer Brothers kept saying? They had a 5-year story. Lifetimey. Sorry, when you said Sanctuary, I was going to say, oh man, I loved that show, but it's not the one I was thinking. Up until a point, I really loved that show. You know, it had a very low budget but fun feel to it. I don't know what Sanctuary: A Witch's Tale is. Little lifetimey, yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure that that's probably what they were going for. But I mean, I think that's why a lot of people are going back to old shows. You know, I mean, you can't compare modern TV. No, I haven't. I haven't watched much of the American Horror Story. I need to sit down and watch it. I've been told several times to sit down and watch it. And I can start with a season, just don't bounce around the season. So, you know, I can start with any one of the seasons, which I need to do. Right. Yeah, Coven was the one that Tater kept telling me to watch. That, and I can't remember the other one. But I'm pretty sure Coven was the one I'm supposed to watch. Like, that was a bigger deal. And was it Hotel was the other one? I don't remember. Okay. Well, no, that's fine. Ninetales, you're fine. I do understand. But I guess I'm getting tired of these shows that don't give you a resolution at the end of the episode. And I'm not even talking like a major resolution, but a simple part of the journey. I think that's why I like Fallout so much, is that each episode gives you a bit of resolution. You know, it doesn't have to be a perfect resolution, but something. You know, it tells a story from beginning to end in each episode. Right. I understand that, but it's not like you have to follow it linearly per season, if I remember correctly. Right. NCIS. NCIS, one of the most popular shows, long running. Each episode has, for the most part, other than when they're two-parters, has an integral start and finish resolution. But there's also subtext storylines that bend and flow through them. Right, which I'll probably just sit down and watch it from beginning to end, even though first time I tried to watch the first season, I watched the first episode and I don't think I was in the mindset to watch it, so I just never went back. That was probably my fault. But what I'm talking about is these resolutions. Hey, I probably could. Yeah, see, that was my problem. Is like when I first tried to watch the first one, it was really obvious to me what was going on. And I only watched the first episode. It's also why I don't read too many murder mystery. Like, okay, my mom had me read this book that kept her on the edge of her seat. Okay, that's kind of cool. You know, when she was reading this book, she couldn't put it down. I literally read the first page or two right in front of her, and I'm like, okay, it's this guy. And she's like, what? You have a good night, Jade. She's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, it's this guy. It's obvious. He's the one that impersonates voices. It literally says it in the first page. You know, and they mentioned that they got a call from the guy, so which muddies up the timeline of when he was actually killed versus when they think he was killed. And so it has to be this guy that killed him and used. I predicted the whole book off the first couple of pages. Like the whole book. Like I explained why it was such a murder mystery because the timeline was so screwed up. And I'm like, but the author gave it away in the first page. I think it was literally the first page. Like I literally read the first page and I could tell exactly what was going on. It's really hard to get one over on me. Agatha Christie is one of the few that has ever actually been able to keep me. Oh, I love, which Quantum Leap? Do you mean the old school one or the one they tried to reboot? Because I don't know anything about the new one, but I love the old one. Both? Okay. What made me mad about the old Quantum Leap is that they dropped a storyline that should have had some resolution. There were evil leapers. There were leapers that were trying to make the world worse. And we never went back to it before the show ended. Made me so mad. Because I kept waiting for it to come back up. It reminded me of Sliders. Which after a while, that story, that got weird, but I like the first seasons of Sliders. Okay, I didn't know Rowling wrote mystery books. I'm going to be honest, I've never found her as that good of a writer. Like her prose bothered me. And yes, I know it was written in a style meant to attract young kids, and I was way out of its age range to read it. But I just couldn't understand how so many people of my age and older went crazy for that in Twilight. And I'm just like, I don't understand it. Like, I mean, they literally went nuts over it. Like, yeah, it was a decent story, but it's not worth all this hype. Oh my God. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's been a long time since I could sit down and enjoy a book. I will say that Raven's book was actually very enjoyable. I did like it. I really liked that book. It was fun. But outside of that, I also don't know who to read. You know, I mean, the more I dive into the plot lines, the actual plot lines behind Stephen King's books, the more it kind of disgusts me to read them. And I don't know, it bothers me knowing now what I know. So it's taken a lot of the fun out of reading Stephen King. Ah, okay. Well, yeah, that kind of just tells on himself, doesn't it? You know, and I love Stephen King. I mean, I am a big fan of it, but once I started reading into like the actual premise behind and how often he uses children, I can't stand it anymore. You know, and I know that's mostly just me, but I realized how many times he puts actual children in jeopardy for his books and how it's a main plot line. Well, yeah, because killers always want the attention. You know, that's what gets most of them. I mean, I guarantee you there are silent killers out there that just don't want attention, that do it because they want to do it. They don't take trophies. They don't do anything like that. I guarantee you there's this whole subgenre of psycho killers that do it for the love of the game. Right. Which, I mean, if you write that kind of protagonist well, that's fine. But she really should have read up on, I can't remember who it was, But there was a serial killer back in the day. I don't remember how long ago it was, who literally participated in the search for himself. And he kept throwing the detectives off because he was on the inside, because he was literally smarter than them. And it actually took the collective use of all of them. But I'm of an opinion that, the missing persons, like how people call the smiley face killers. I think that there are some actual killings mixed up in with just drunk guys falling in rivers. And that's why the MO is so hard to prove, because they basically studied how the people, their marks, their prey most often dies. And so they use that. Pure and simple. Well, that's kind of cool. Well, and it's like, I don't know. I've read a lot of books. I've read a lot of stuff like that. And I mean, I could get into authors and how false and fake the New York Times bestseller list is, and how fake, major award-winning authors really are, because they're not. They win the awards before they even really go on sale. So it's not the people going for it. It's the industry propping up people from the inside. It's the same thing that the Oscars, the Emmys, the Tonys, all of these awards do. They prop up the people they want to see succeed. It's all just, smoke and mirrors. It's not really about people, because they keep telling people what to like because this guy's the one on the inside. Right. But anyway, it is that time. And I know you got here late, Nine Tails, and I'm sorry that I can't, stay any longer. But I hope you had fun. I hope everybody had fun. And I hope to see you here tomorrow night. Love you all. And stay safe. Sorry, hit the wrong one.